I understood leadership in this kind of gaming role. And I said, well, wait a minute. Can I just use this at work? Like if I just apply what I know, how I treat people, how I work with problems, everything, all of the strategy and all of the leadership that I learned in the game, can I take this to work? And sure enough, I think within 3 months of me actively trying at work, using and just reframing, refocusing that, within 3 months, I got a raise and a promotion that I was looking for.
Wow. You mentioned one thing about this game in particular. You know what I was picturing? I was picturing being in the corporate world again, all of this time. Guess what we've done in this, what we call retreats, or, when they get together, all of the employees or the C-level executives, what they did was they put us to play games. Now, they were games of like, let's say strategy, okay, or competitions. Well, a competition is a game. You
Yeah,
just got to know what are the best strategies and steps for you to beat every other team. So you did this, but what one of the most difficult games that are out there, you became one of the top 1% winner by leading a team. But by leading a team is because you were gathering, organizing, strategizing, and supporting your team. Would you say that's what you did in three
absolutely.
weeks?
Yeah, understanding and really working with the people, right? Because you have to imagine, right? The same what I mentioned, right? We rated 2 to 3 times a week, and we were number two. There were other guilds, there were other teams that did 7 days a week. They did every day, but they would just beat their head. I mean, that's what it seemed like. They would just beat their head against the wall, like just their approach to the leadership aspect of it was just do better. You're doing it wrong. And we never wanted to be that. We always wanted it to be this like fun environment, right? We're playing a game. And how do you get people to show up? Right. Because it's only like 8 to 10 people, but sometimes trying to coordinate 10 people online at the same time on their off hours, right? That was the other hard part. Like people didn't have to be there. Right. It's not like work or it's like, okay, you have to show up and you have to work with this person because, they're your colleague. No, these are people that want to be there. It's completely optional to play this game. So how do you get the people that want to show up? So you have to motivate them too.
Welcome to the Business Money Podcast, where intelligent financing meets strategic thinking. Today, we have a special guest for you. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about business strategies, but in another light, from another perspective. Actually, do you play games? Do you have an Xbox? Do you have a PS1, a PS5? What do you have? Are you a gamer? Well, if you're a gamer, I think this podcast is going to be great. Also, if you're a gamer and you're an entrepreneur, you're a business owner, or you're a young man out there thinking, hey, how can I use my skills as a gamer, as a strategist? Well, guess what? Gaming is a strategy. So we have Daniel Baker, founder of Dragonmore XP, who is a business strategist, leadership coach, and former Fortune 500 supply chain professional that is helping entrepreneurs and high-performing professionals rethink how they approach businesses, leadership, and growth by treating business like the ultimate strategy game. I love all that. Well, Daniel, thank you so much for joining us. How are you doing today?
Thank you, Andres. No, I am fantastic. No, thank you for that wonderful intro. And being a gamer, I absolutely adore and enjoy games. And I think it's all about having fun. And why not make business a little more like a game? Actually make business fun. That's how I feel.
Well, you got to have fun in the process because guess what? Being an entrepreneur, being a business owner is hard. And if you don't feel like you're having fun, well, guess what? Maybe you're not in the right field. And it doesn't mean that it's all the time. There are things that we like, there are things that we don't like. But I'm really excited to dive in with you and ask you a little bit about your background, how you help entrepreneurs and business owners, basically put on the strategies gamer hat to tackle business. Tell us a little bit about your background and what you've done.
Sure. So I was been a gamer since as long as I can remember as a kid, right? I have the original Nintendo. For those watching on the video, I have my original Nintendo right behind me. And so I've played since a very young age and just enjoy having fun with it. But growing up, I definitely did everything that you're supposed to do, right? Because I did have that kind of I guess you call it the kind of not the stigma. I guess there's some of that, but definitely had that pressure. I'll say from society. Not always necessarily my parents, but a lot of society and things that I watch. Just like, well, video games are fun, and certainly they are, but you gotta at some point grow up. you got to go get a real job. Right. And so part of me kind of fell into that trap and I kind of went off and kind of did what you're supposed to do. I went to college. Came out of college, just like, all right, I have my degree. Now what? Still didn't know what I wanted to do. So actually worked retail at a GameStop, right? So got to, be a manager, got to be like a store manager for that. And it was like, is this it? Is this all I'm doing? And then was convinced again by friends and family kind of on autopilot, be like, you should go back to school. You get a like bigger, well-paying job. I was like, okay, maybe I should go back to school. Went back to school, came out with an MBA. Now I go work for one of these big Fortune 500 companies. And I worked in supply chain, which is very fun. And I love the way that interacts with gaming too, just to be like, the supply chain was always like puzzles to be solved, right? With limited resources and, so much about that with video games as well.
That's a great analogy that you just put out there. Like actually supply chain. I mean, that's how I consider supply chain. And procurement and all that is like it's like you're playing a Tetris game, trying to fit little boxes into different spaces to be able to basically get to levels and acquire and move. Well, we talk about supply chain a lot here in this podcast because we're seeing right now the total disruption of supply chain all over the world. So that's why I said that this is not bad times. This is great time if you want to get into that game, if you want to really disrupt a lot of the supply chain and the things how we do it. So that's strategic. And I love the word that you mentioned, of being basically a business strategist and leadership coach. So you mentioned that you were seeing, okay, I have the skills, I like to game and I like strategy games, right? So how can we apply or what is your methodology to analyze maybe a business and see the strategy that they can take on or learn from you?
Yeah, and it's something. So I have to tell a story about that because that's really kind of how I came to what I'm doing now, right? Because I went from Fortune 500 to my own business, right, and my own podcast, like so doing what I love now, and it's so that story is basically I was doing again everything you were supposed to do. I was on autopilot, like just like all right, got to get the good job, okay, now it's time to move up the corporate ladder. So I go to my boss and I'm like, basically, hey, I should be promoted, right? Like I've been here long enough. And again, I've been I feel like on autopilot so long that it's like, okay, well, this is just the next thing that happens. But then he said, no, I got denied a promotion. And it was just like, and then I got passed over time. I was like, what is happening? Like, I thought this is what you're supposed to do. Like, now I'm running into a wall. So I don't know what was happening. It's like, oh, well, Daniel, it's just, we don't see your leadership potential. I was like, oof, I just don't understand corporate leadership. Okay.
Actually, good point, because I mean, I think that the most important thing if you manage a team is to understand your team, understand the value of your team, and understand that they're not going to be exactly the same all in their different, basically, let's say, the way that they are or their strengths or weaknesses. We call it the SWOT analysis. I'm always doing the SWOT analysis on every company, every founder, every CEO, and even the team and even the succession team or whatever's going to happen. I mean, you're seeing right now, that's what you got to build around you. You got to have a good team of people, but you got to understand their value because guess what? You're a strategist, but you were a strategist because you learned by actually playing very difficult games that you actually get into a wall, as you mentioned, and then, okay, how can I get around this wall? How can I get over this wall, underneath this wall? It's different ways,
Because
to get.
I think that's one of the amazing things about games is that you're inherently you want to beat the game, right? So you hit game over, you get killed, you die in the game. That's not the end, right? You hit continue, you restart, you reload, right? And you keep going until you win. Right. So we have this kind of mentality as gamers to just keep going. Right. So I was thinking to myself, so back to the story. So like I got denied the promotion and I was like, well, I have to keep going. I don't know what this corporate leadership is. I'll try to figure this out. At around the same time, I was playing this massively multiplayer online game, an MMO, as they're called Star Wars The Old Republic, or SWOTOR that know that. And I was our guild leader and our raid leader, raids being the hardest content you can do in that game, and on nightmare difficulty, as they called it. So it's like teams of like, depending on the game, like 8 to 10 people that you have to be on at a very specific time and go to this very specific location and fight these bosses, which are like anywhere from like, depending on the game, like 5 to 20-minute fights. And if anybody screws up at any point, it's called a wipe. Everyone dies, restart, do it again. So we're wiping on these bosses like over and over and over, but we're making progress, right? It's all about this like little progress. And we got to a wall We hit this, the last boss of this one raid, and we could not beat him for weeks, right? So we're like, and we only raided like maybe 2, sometimes 3 nights a week. So it wasn't like a lot, but like weeks on end, we can't do this. Finally, we're able to clear it. Holy crap, that was amazing. Wow. Everybody's celebrating, high fives virtually all around. And then finally they're like, yes, thank you, Dan. You've been amazing. I'm like, yeah, I know. It's like, good job. Everybody's like, no, you don't understand. We're number 2. I was like, what do you mean? It's like, yeah, on our server, we're the second guild to ever complete this. I was like, holy crap.
Amazing. Wow.
Yeah.
That is crazy. Like, you were like, wait, what? I thought everybody like
Even I was like, huh? I was like, how are we this high? So we're like number 2 on the server, which means we're in like the top 1% in the world playing this game, sharing this content. And it's like, wow, this is really cool. And then I forget who it was chimed in. One of the group was just like, thank you, Daniel. You've been such a great leader. I was like, oh, he didn't say guild leader. He didn't say raid leader. He said a leader. And that's when it started to click. I was like, wait a minute. Leadership is leadership. It doesn't matter where you learn it. It doesn't matter how you gain the skill working with a team in different contexts. I was just not applying it to a business context. I understood leadership in this kind of gaming role. And I said, well, wait a minute. Can I just use this at work? Like if I just apply what I know, how I treat people, how I work with problems, everything, all of the strategy and all of the leadership that I learned in the game, can I take this to work? And sure enough, I think within 3 months of me actively trying at work, using and just reframing, refocusing that, within 3 months, I got a raise and a promotion that I was looking for.
Wow. So you mean to tell me that before, because you were not tackling maybe or maybe, like it was basically not understanding how to tackle a different challenge, let's say at work, like running into a wall really of the promotion was a challenge. Okay. Well, how can I strategize and actually get that promotion? And maybe, or maybe it's about, showing my value properly. You mentioned one thing about this game in particular. You know what I was picturing? I was picturing being in the corporate world again, all of this time. Guess what we've done in this, what we call basically, retreats or, when they get together, all of the employees or the C-level executives, what they did was they put us to play games. Now, they were games of like, let's say strategy, okay, or competitions. Well, a competition is a game. You
Yeah,
just got to know what are the best strategies and steps for you to beat every other team. So very very similarly, like you did this, but what one of the most difficult games that are out there, you became one of the top 1% basically winner by leading a team. But by leading a team is because you were gathering, organizing, strategizing, and supporting your team. Would you say that's what you did in three
absolutely.
weeks?
Yeah, understanding and really working with the people, right? Because you have to imagine, right? The same what I mentioned, right? We rated 2 to 3 times a week, and we were number 2. There were other guilds, there were other teams that did 7 days a week. They did every day, but they would just beat their head. I mean, that's what it seemed like. They would just beat their head against the wall, like just their approach to the leadership aspect of it was just do better. You're doing it wrong. And we never wanted to be that. We always wanted it to be this like fun environment, right? We're playing a game. And how do you get people to show up? Right. Because it's only like 8 to 10 people, but sometimes trying to coordinate 10 people online at the same time on their off hours, right? That was the other hard part. Like people didn't have to be there. Right. It's not like work or it's like, okay, you have to show up and you have to work with this person because, they're your colleague. No, these are people that want to be there. It's completely optional to play this game. So how do you get the people that want to show up? So you have to motivate them too.
You got to motivate them and you have to understand basically what moves them, what drives them, and then tie it into a common goal. Right now, you and I believe that we connected and we're here doing this podcast to teach entrepreneurs and gamers at the same time how to win the game of life, because that's really what it comes down to. We function on basically, high level successful entrepreneurs and founders, they function is basically on beating levels. It's like, okay, level 1, we're going to start this. Level 2, we're going to perfect it. Level 3, we're going to build on top of it, like the Tetris game that you just mentioned. So it is about accomplishments and hitting the next levels. What else can we learn from your experience? And now, basically, let's use Dragonmore XP as basically, your consulting firm. And how do you help a business owner, a CEO or entrepreneur, a C-level executive use your strategies to be able to maybe create ways to take the business to the next level? What other things can you teach us? I'm sorry.
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of the reframing is done through gamification. And gamification being the use of gaming or video game elements in other business contexts, right? Whether and gamification does a wide variety of things. So that's why the services kind of encompass a lot. So it's kind of where do you want to focus, right? What is your goal first? And gamification especially can help with whether it's engagement, employee engagement to get your people actually working, right? That motivation, whether it's client engagement, right, having the customers that stick around that actually want to work with you and having them come back monthly, right, if you have a subscription, or you come back for additional help, or to help solve more problems, or just for the executive themselves to work with individuals at the C-level directly, just to say, how do we gamify just your time, like in your tasks, like how do we make sure that you're focused on the right things, because a lot of what gaming teaches and what I kind of bring through is these kind of gaming elements to make it both fun and engaging, but also get you the results that you're looking for. Right. So one of the big things, as an example, would be just kind of the progression system. Right. A lot of games have levels or XP, experience points, which is why I call it Dragonmore XP. It's about gaining these experience points, which is something quantifiable that you can see along the way to see how you've progressed. And all games, I'll say all good games, have like some kind of a progression system. Sometimes it's invisible, sometimes it's very, very in your face about it. But it's always that sense of incremental improvement. And no game, and I say this with the tongue in cheek, where it's like good games, they won't tell you when you first start the game, like, all right, go fight the final boss right now. And you're like, what? I don't even know how to play. What are you talking about? No, you go through level one. Sometimes there's a tutorial past that, or before that. And sometimes the games work it into the first, like level one is just a tutorial. And it's like, this is how you play. And it's super easy, but you accomplish something. And then we move on. And we say, all right, we just progressively get a little bit more difficult. We just add on mechanics, right? And sometimes it'll be, again, these amazing game designers, they'll be like, we're just going to add one little thing. And then the next level, we're going to add one little thing. But you have to remember what you just did, because now you have to apply that one too. So like by the time you get to level 10, you've had 10 things that you've been taught, and now you have to use all of them in concert to actually beat like the boss on the next level. The real point is that you want to make sure that you're learning and progressing in a way that makes sense, that you're building on what came before. So a lot of what we do in Dragonmore XP is help kind of put that in perspective, and like making sure that we're doing the right tasks in the right order, right? Because I think what big challenge with the executives, especially like solopreneurs, new budding entrepreneurs, is that there's so much to do. You have to wear all the hats, especially as a solopreneur. And it's like, where do you even start? And so part of what I do is help, gamify that, in the sense of not only understanding what the priorities are, but also making it sure that it's in this kind of progression kind of sequence to be like, okay, what do you want to do? All right, what are the dependencies on that? Let's make it so that you can get better at each of those. So you can get to that goal. And the last thing on that point is also the little celebrations along the way, because gaming does an amazing job of that, which I definitely pull through in everything that I do, is that you have to celebrate. When you check off a task and you're done, it's not just a simple like scratch it off, all right, move on. It's like, no, you need to celebrate the wins along the way. And this is something that comes directly from gaming, and there's the psychology behind it. Why it works so well, why gaming to some people is even addictive, is because of how it rewards you along the way. We just need to do a better job of ourselves, I think, in business, to reward ourselves along the way. And that's another thing that I help with.
Wow. So well put, because I think a lot of times we work so hard. And if we're business owners and we have different business ventures and so forth, we're driven to accomplish, get to levels, but we're not playful enough. We forget to celebrate. And I love this piece. I would like to tie in news, like of basically, when we're discussing this with business owners and entrepreneurs. And I want to basically call the attention of the business owner, entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, or C-level executives that are managing right now a team. And you're managing a team of different ages, different people, different backgrounds and so forth. Right now, I believe that we're seeing some changes on how we need to think about our employees. And the reason why I mentioned that is because if you are looking at the screen, you can see that basically in the news, we've seen that the Generation Z is becoming the tool belt generation. And I think that we're seeing a lot of young people actually taken into roles and tasks in very hard blue collar jobs. So I think that one of the reasons that we've seen this, and Gen Z is becoming the tool belt generation, and we've seen basically a decrease in enrollments in colleges. And it's because they don't feel a lot of times, or they cannot visualize how they're going to win the game of life if they are taking on this debt and this commitment of 2 years, 3 years, 4 years on working on getting your degree. And I think that's the way that we should look at when we are looking at education, or we're looking at the people that we have. How can we help them visualize and create the strategy to win at the game of life? And does this make sense, like what you're seeing basically here in the news compared to what you see in managing people and C-level executives, Daniel?
Oh, absolutely. I think the tool belt generation, I guess, meaning more like the blue collar jobs, right? And I think 100% that there's a lot more, yeah, move toward that, because a few things that the college system, I think, is kind of, yeah, I'll say in my opinion, is definitely kind of gone downhill as far as like the value that it brings. I went to the traditional 4 year, college degree kind of system, and again, I think it was back to that autopilot thing where it's like, oh, go to college, you'll get a good job, right? That's what parents, my generation, millennial generation, I guess, elder millennial, right? The zennial, I think we're called sometimes now, where they're like, all right, go to college, you'll get a good job. Get out of college, they've started outsourcing all the jobs, right? Like there's a lot fewer jobs that are available at, even the college, graduate level. So that was one of the pushes. Like I said, it was one of the reasons why they're like, oh, well, college degree not worth as much anymore. You better go back and get a master's degree. I'm like, then what was the point of the college degree? And I think it's only gone downhill.
And I think we got to be careful with that, because I was having this conversation with my nephews, that, basically they're in the 24, going to school, going to college, all that. And we said, okay, you got to look at a college degree like you are investing into a business or a franchise. I want you to give me the ROI, the return on investment. Don't just look at it as, oh my God, I'm going to get this title. Nobody cares about the title. I tell you this as, basically as a professional with all of the big companies, like all of the big firms, and capital, and you name it. Nobody cares about the title. Everybody cares about the ability for you to produce results. Bottom line, that is what it's about. So when I tell them, look at the ROI, by the way, if you're going to be a CEO, immediately you come out of college, we're going to look at a business for you to be the operator immediately, and for you to take on and do. If you have not everybody's made to do that. I mean, and we look at it statistically, let's say it's a 30%, 30 to 70%. So 30% of, let's say, the population maybe have the mindset and skills to get to business ownership. Maybe the rest, they need a place, to be able to add value with their skills. And that's a fair trade. I mean, I believe in that. But we need to look at it as that is a game of strategy. What college are you going to go to? How is this going to impact your life, the next level of your life, so you can keep building up and get to the top 1%? So I like that analogy, Daniel. What do you think?
No, I think absolutely having the ROI aspect of it, and that's something I think we're not taught in high school, especially when I went to high school, right? Even understanding what the ROI is, or what an ROI is at all. Just understanding that there is a trade-off, right? That there is this opportunity cost of doing one versus the other, right? And again, I think so. Trying to shock people out of the autopilot, right? And that's one of the things that definitely helped me. It kind of coming to these realizations that like I can do something else. I don't have to go with the mainstream. I don't have to be go on this path that was just set before me. That I'm like, oh, I don't necessarily want that. So understanding that you can change your course at any time, I think huge, powerful. And then I think for the young people, like you're really understanding what it is you want, right? And it's not necessarily what other people expect of you, right? I think that's a huge thing that I came to that realization to say, I did what was expected of me quite a lot. And that serves me some, right? But at some point it's like, okay, what do you want to do? And that's why, and I've always loved gaming, so I knew I had to do something with gaming. And even going back to the Fortune 500 company, you might ask, well, all right, well, Daniel, why did you go work for that company? Everything's just kind of aligned, right? And sometimes you get these kind of moments where you're like, I think this is where I'm supposed to be right now. And that can change. And that's what happened to me because I feel like I was where I was supposed to be, right? Because I have had also an interest in Japan, Japanese culture, anime, the language, right? I speak some Japanese. I actually lived over there for a few years. So definitely have a very big interest in Japan, Japanese culture. That also stemmed from video games because when I was young and I played on my Nintendo and on my PlayStation, I started to realize, wait a minute, these are Japanese companies. And some of my favorite games came from Japan. I was like, there's something to this Japan thing. I'm going to figure this out. And I got an opportunity to study abroad over there and did that. And that was super amounts of fun. And so all this kind of Japanese influence came out. And then, of course, when I went to go work, they said, hey, we have some Japanese suppliers. And I was like, oh, this is kind of where this connection is going to come in. That's great. And they're like, well, and they're in Tokyo. And I'm like, oh, that's awesome. Like, well, they're not really in Tokyo. They're in this small town next to it. You called Mitaka, Daniel. You probably don't know where that is. And I said, I know exactly where that is. That's where I went to school for a year. So
That is
it lined
awesome
up.
because immediately you were able, I mean, first of all, that creates value when you know about, let's say, a place, a culture. I say that because I love world traveling. I mean, I think that, the best thing that you can do as a young man is travel the world because guess what? Later on, like, I mean, while you're going to build a company or build a legacy or build, a career in a job, well, you're not going to be able to do that. So I love that you were able to show, hey, by the way, I know that town. I understand the Japanese culture. So they see more value of you as a teammate into the company.
Exactly right. And like I said, it just kind of made so much sense because, showing that value. Because when I went over there, for travel as part of that, I was showing them where to go to dinner, right? And be like, hey, we're going to go out. And I'm like, no, 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 you got to go over here. I know this place because I was just there a couple of years ago. And so it was just so much fun. And it made so much sense at the time. Right. And of course, time moves on and you have to kind of make sure that you're always calibrating for where you're at because eventually that company that in my position everything like that it just usual kind of company turmoil I guess you call it corporate America where it's like hey do less do more with less and eventually finally was let go and it was just like okay now what do I do and I came to that realization of like well wait a minute like I want to do something with gaming what about that whole promotion thing right and all that amazing value I was able to provide by using my gaming. And so that's when I went to set about work doing saying like, hey, I can do like a podcast. I can do something where I can share the value of gaming to others, right? So whether it's gamers or non-gamers, right? I definitely encourage those that are gamers that are listening, say you can use your gaming skills. And that's one of the best things that you can do. That's one of the core things that I teach in Dragonmore XP is to show you how you can take your gaming and turn it into these, tangible skills that companies are looking for. And even on the non-gamer side, on the corporate side, to say like gamification, right? The use of gaming elements in your business is critical now, right? Because how are you going to motivate your employees? How are you going to engage your clients? Right.
I'm going to give you an example, Daniel. I believe that right now the retooling of basically all the companies and everything that is happening with AI. Well, guess what? It is sort of it's a language. So guess what? You got to learn how to play well in this language of AI. That is a game. That is a talk about gamification. Talk about like what you're mentioning. It's about you got to take interest into something that is completely new to you and learn it so you can add it to your tool belt of valuable things to be able to stay relevant in a position or in a career or even as a business owner. I was having this conversation with even attorneys, like that, there's attorneys that haven't even touched ChatGPT or any of the AI tools. And I get it. And I'm not saying that they have to replace it, but the ones that haven't touched it, guess what? They're already staying behind because they don't understand that it's got to be something now that is integrated into at least some of the alleviation of the workload and processes, that you can automate a couple of things. It doesn't mean not cross your T's and do all that, but really use that. So I
Right.
think that
And
is
if
a
I can
good,
talk,
that is a good
yeah,
example.
exactly. Because if I can talk the AI example, right? Because I know there's a bunch of fear and issue around AI as far as like replacing jobs. And I'll say, in my opinion, what I see, what I understand from AI is that it's not truly replacing. Right. There's definitely uses for it that can reduce the amount of workload, which might seem like that. But you really need it's really more of a tool. It's really more of enhancing the individual to do more, right? To completely automate a process, to completely like cut out the human factor is nigh impossible, right? But having the tool belt, so you mentioned the tool belt, right? And I think that's where if we can arm the younger generations like the Gen Zers to say like if we can use AI proactively and effectively, productively, you can do amazing things with it. You can be this more what's the term, agentic, founder, right? If you're using AI in a way that you can be the solopreneur, but you can do all of these things is, but you still have to do them. You have the AI to help you, right? And so that's where I think is key, right? Because having AI as a helper, right, as a consultant, maybe as kind of the tool belt, but you're still in command, you're still in control, and I think that is where we need to be going. And the whole AI and video games kind of thing too is also the same kind of discussions, right? Where using AI to write video games, to like completely write all the code and stuff, is not working well. You really still need the human that can write faster with an AI. If you do that, that works. But doing completely AI coded things is just disastrous. But AI interaction makes it really interesting, right? Especially when you have conversations. Because no time before now have we had, and this is in games now, by the way, is that you can have an NPC, a non-player character in a game that you can talk to, and you can have little chat interactions, and you can type to them, and they respond, right? Instead of pre-scripted, right? That's kind of the big thing. Like games through the years, right? It's like you have dialogue choices, and there's pre-written responses. Now you can hook it up, like with like an API to like Chat GPT or something, and you can have the AI respond. I remember like just as a demo, I was talking to an NPC, right? And it was in one of these post-apocalyptic kind of game settings, right? It's set like 50 years in the future. And just to test it, I was like trying to like, like the AIs are trying to help you with whatever, but surviving in the wasteland. But I even asked it specific questions. I was like, do you remember movies? And the AI is like, yeah, I remember movies. I was like, what was your favorite movie? Oh, I love Star Wars back then. I'm like, the random video game character knows Star Wars? This is crazy. Like, there's no way that they wrote that dialogue. That just came out. This is crazy.
It's hilarious because we talk about how to interpret when we're talking to AI, right? And yes, it's going to go, they call it the hallucinate, kind of piece, which is why you got to double check a little bit about, the information you get. If you're using it for work, if you're using it for things, you got to double check. There's nothing wrong with that. But don't tell me that it's not changing the way everybody's functioning, because it is. So you just mentioned, okay, so it creates its own personality. You can tell it to be more aggressive or be, unhinged, like Elon Musk likes it or whatever. They all have you can build it to have its own personality, voice, you name it. But I gotta tell you, tie it into what business ownership is, into managing people and C-level executives. I believe that there's three places where every entrepreneur, even myself, even you, we all live. Tomorrow I'll be in Miami. So tomorrow I'm thinking, okay, what I got to do tomorrow, the meetings, the stuff, I have a full agenda all this week. All right. But what do we have? We have, you're all, one of the stages that you're at as a business owner, you're an artist, skill producer, you're kind of the salesman and all of that piece. You take on another hat and you become a manager, a leader, implementation, basically you're managing processes, procedures, all that. And then also you gotta step aside and become a creator. You gotta become the visionary, the connector. There is a problem with entrepreneurs that sometimes they stay in only one side, or they don't build themselves well-rounded in all of three areas. Because no matter what you do, right now, I can tell you that basically I gotta manage capital sources, loans that are closing, raising capital for different entities, companies, you name it. But also I have to be an artist. I am also the director of a big chamber of commerce here in the United States. So we have to create the strategies. We got to fly to Mexico. We got to go everywhere. Well, you got to be able to put yourself and be of value in different places. And that only comes from you mastering all of the communication and, call it the tools, that you have to every room that you enter. Is that a good analogy for what we're seeing right now? That I believe that a good business owner, a good C-level executive, if you want to attract this new generation or manage people properly, you can use a lot of the strategies of the gamification, that you basically mentioned, to be able to teach them to have fun and to become a lot more skilled, in all of these areas. Is that a good analogy?
No, I think it is. I think it's a great analogy because I think that the newest generation, they're not they're how would I phrase this is they're not just going to do it because you told them, if that makes sense, right? They understand a little bit more deeply as far as like their own motivations, their own like the reasons. Like they don't put up with the BS, right? They're gonna kind of say what they feel, and they're gonna if you respect them and you work with them, like they're gonna give you good work. But it's like, how do you really resonate with them is kind of the question. How do you get them motivated? How do you draw that like excellence out of them? And I think that's where something like gamification works so well because you want to make sure that you're engaging them on the level that they want, right? Not just simply like, all right, go get in line here. You're going to stand here. You're going to do this for hours, and we're not going to tell you why. And we're just going to tell you do this in this way because we told you so. Like that's not the way they
It's
typically.
not.
Yes,
It is not because you prove it. You prove it with what happened to you with your story that, hey, okay, I am going to do everything, by the book, and I'm just going to go on faith. Well, I believe the new generation, you have to be able to show them the big picture. And also, I say this, because it's the same problem that I see, let's say, in succession with companies. All right. So when we talk about the five different levels of business ownership, and I don't know if you're familiar, but you can go with a startup, early stage, mid stage. You get to maturity, and then you get to acquire or merge. So you already sold your business, all of that. Guess what? Most business owners stay in level one or level two. They don't get to, maybe they get to level three, but there's no succession. Why is that? Because they tell me, well, no, my son, my daughter, or my family, they're not like me. They're not this. I'm like, well, they will never be like you. I mean, they might have values similar to you because you raised them, but you're failing to see their value. Do a SWOT analysis on your son, on your daughter, or on the team that you have around you. Let's do a SWOT analysis of each and understand that they have different skills. My daughter doesn't, she's not as a good operator. All right. But is she a good salesperson? All right, perfect. Well, let's put her into that. My son is not a good, manager. Okay. Well, is he a good visionary connector? Maybe he's that. Maybe he is the strategy piece that we need, to get to the next level. It's really teaching people how to value everybody around them. And it's a very simple way because you mentioned you want to break the stigma of really, gamers. Like, I mean, I know I have friends. I have a brother, a really good friend of mine. Like I'm gonna call out Paul. All right. So I'm gonna tell him to watch the podcast. I'm like, he's a great guy, love the man, and he's just a gamer. He's constantly like getting his PlayStations like worked on and souped up, I guess, with superchargers, whatever. I like cars, all right. I'm just making the analogy. But he tells me I don't know because I'm like, well, I don't know what these motherboards or whatever this is, but you're happy. It's his value because he's just, basically he's very well versed on that spectrum. But I believe that that's what we got to do in life. Always value everybody around us, not because they're just exactly like us, but because they bring different skills and a different perspective and a way to see things. Daniel, I think that we can stay here all day basically talking about this, but I want to be able to be of service to you and your mission. Tell us where we can go find more of what you're doing, of how you're helping business owners, entrepreneurs. Tell us your channels, tell us all of that.
absolutely. No, thank you so much. Yeah, so you can find me at Dragonmore XP at YouTube. That's where you'll find the podcast, the Game Your Future podcast. Is so at Dragonmore XP YouTube. So youtube.com/ at Dragonmore XP, as well as the website if you're interested in learning about more what you can do with gamification, right? So I do gamification services. If you're small business, small medium businesses is kind of my bread and butter, especially those that do technology apps, any kind of digital communities, these kind of things. Like I've worked with several of them that are so much fun. But if you're interested as far as gamification services or even learning how to draw out your own gamer instincts and tangible skills, dragonmorexp.com. And you can start your journey there with me today. And really just trying to understand how gamification can help and how you can level up your life as a gamer.
That is awesome. Thank you so much, Daniel. Love your mission, love your work. I'm looking forward to seeing you change lives and, and help businesses grow and expand. And people also, really understand that maybe they were misunderstood. Maybe they were not valued, by the right skills. You got to enter the right rooms, to be able to do that. So now I know basically that, that you are serving a great purpose. I want to thank you so much, Daniel. I hope that we can do this again pretty soon and talk a little bit more about all of the progress in 2026. And of course, I want to invite you to follow him and also to come and see us again, and learn more on how to strategize your business. This has been the Business Money Podcast, and I will see
And
you.
Andreas,
Go
I do
ahead.
have one final question, if you don't mind.
Please, absolutely. Go ahead.
So I would love to, as part of what I enjoy doing on my podcast too. So you're familiar with gaming or games in general, right? And I did want to ask, what is your favorite video game?
All right, brother. Look, I'm old, so let's just put it that
I have
way.
the Nintendo right there, so you don't have to tell me. But
I'm going to tell you the last game that I had and the reason why I bought it. Matrix in GameCube. Do you remember when GameCube came out and there was the Matrix game?
I do remember that.
Okay, I remember, I was living in Chicago, and winters, basically I will come home, and that's what I did. I'll be honest, I didn't keep up with it. I don't even know what happened to that. I, I mean, it's probably worth hundreds of thousands of dollars right now, and I don't even own it. But yeah, that was my favorite game. It started with Mario Brothers, back in the day.
Yeah.
So when I was younger. Yeah. What about yours? What's your favorite game?
Yes, that's the hardest question you could have asked me right there. But no, I do have an answer because I've been pretty consistent about this one. Actually, it's my favorite game of all time is Chrono Trigger for the Super Nintendo. Chrono Trigger is a JRPG or Japanese RPG. There's the Japan again, and it is amazing. It's done by this dream team at SquareSoft, now Square Enix, right? And just the amazing RPG, just the adventure that you go on, and it involves time travel, which is really fun, back and forth, trying to affect time and trying to save the world by going back and forth through time. So much fun! I cannot recommend it enough. I'm also a huge fan of the Final Fantasy franchise. Final Fantasy VI is the best one. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. But I know a lot of people say 7 or whatever, but if you played them all, 6.
I got it. Hey, look,
There you go.
if there's somebody that I'm going to listen to and who I'm going to, basically trust on, that is going to be you, Daniel. Thank you so much. Well, this is awesome. I do believe that actually, playing games and doing all these things, it's even relaxing, we are driven to go do things and whatever, and then we come back and we can, play in our games and do our things. And, it's, you feel a sense of accomplishment. It's a good stress relief situation. It's a good connection too, because as you've done with your brothers and in mission, you guys accomplished that. So I do believe that we got to break the stigma on things. I
I
think that
agree. I think it's the that last point because I can't stress that enough, and I want to make sure it's 100% clear that yes, I play games because they're fun, right? That's number one. It's fun. It's relaxing. You get to enjoy your time. This is why we play games, and my whole mission is to say yes, play the games because you enjoy them, because you have fun. But just think, you're actually learning and growing a little bit more because of the games you play. It's not only for entertainment. You can get so much more out of it. So I love it as a medium more so than say in my opinion, more than like movies or books where you actually get to interact with it. Right. And that's how you build these kind of strategies, right? Because you're doing these kind of problem solving. Right. And the last message I would love to leave you with is problem solving. If I had to say, if there's one skill, leadership through me doing the guild thing, and I think leadership in a lot of aspects very good in video game. But if there's one, if you play any video games at all, the one skill I know you have that you can put on a resume, you can talk to people about, is that you have problem solving skills, right? You have strategy and you have problem solving skills. So gamers, we're the best problem solvers on the planet because we do it for fun.
Well, I couldn't say it better. I think you nailed it right in the head. Daniel, this has been fantastic. Thank you so much. I look forward to doing this again pretty soon with you and, maybe bringing in a little bit more strategies, of gaming and life and business ownerships and entrepreneurs and all that. So, Daniel, thank you so much. I look forward to seeing you in the next podcast.